المشتاق لا تنمي هذه أنوار ذي سلمي عن قليل أنت في الحرم عند خير العرب والعجم قف أمام القابر بالأدب أيها المشتاق لا تنمي هذه أنوار ذي سلمي عن قليل أنت في الحرم عند خير العرب والعجم قف أمام
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الفاتحة بنية التعلم والتعليم، التذكر والتذكير، والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة، والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله، والدعاء إلى الهدى، والدلالة على الخير، ابتغاء وجه الله مرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى، على ما نوى نبينا سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وعلى ما نوى سلفنا الصالحين، وعلى ما نوى المؤلف الحبيب أحمد بن زين الحبشي، شيخنا أحمد أحمد بن الحبشي، من ذلك في نياتهم، وأعمالنا في أعمالهم، وأخلاقنا في أخلاقهم، وطريقتنا في طريقتهم القبول، وإلى حضرة النبي سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم بسر الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين، إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. رب اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين آمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل محمد. اللهم علمنا وانفعنا وعلمنا وزدنا علما. رب سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. So inshallah this week we will continue with hello. Okay. Sorry, just had to check. Inshallah this week we will continue with the conditions of validity for prayer. Okay, so in Risalah al-Jami'ah, Ahmad has not covered, it being an elementary text, he has not put down all the conditions. Most of the conditions are there. Okay. I will add some conditions towards the end. Okay. Again, last week we already did knowing that the time for prayer has come. Right, is one of the conditions, and secondly that one knows the Qibla, okay, i.e. one is facing the Qibla with one's chest. Okay, so this week inshallah we will continue and finish up the conditions of validity for prayer inshallah. Okay, وقال شيخ المؤلف أدام الله نفع به وبشيخنا بدارين آمين. ويجب ستر العورة بساتر طاهر مباح. Okay, that it is also wajib, it's also obligatory for the one who is praying. One of the conditions of validity of our prayer is that one conceals the aura. Okay. Okay, what does aura, what are we referring to when we talk about aura? We're talking about okay. talking about? When we talk about aura, we are talking about the part of the body which is haram to gaze upon, to look at, and which is wajib to conceal. Yeah. Okay. So that is what is considered the aura, right? And the different aura for different aurat for men and for women, right? And there are different degrees of aurat for both with regards to who is or in whose company they are present. Okay. So aura is that part of the body whose concealment is wajib and looking upon is haram. Okay. In fact, generally looking desirously at anything that is not permissible for one, or is forbidden upon one is haram. Okay, obviously looking at anything that is forbidden is haram, but looking at anything that is not haram for one, but with desire or with lust, with shahwa, right, it makes it haram. Okay, such as things or people that we would not normally look upon with shahwa, with desire. Okay. So it's wajib to conceal from who? Is from humans, from other humans, right? From jinn, from angels, okay, from devils. And one of the things that our teachers teach us, right, from the hadith, if I'm not wrong, is based in hadith also, right, is that when we need to undress or take off our clothes, right, we need to get into a state of undress for the bathroom or whatever it is, that we should read Bismillahilladzi la ilaha illahu. Okay, and when we recite this, then inshallah the eyes of for example, if we're going to the bathroom, and the eyes of the jinn or the shayateen, the devils and the jinn will be blinded from our or blinkered from our aura, inshallah. Okay, Bismillahilladzi la ilaha illahu. Okay. So with regards to men, as I mentioned earlier, okay, there are different rulings as to what is considered aura, right, relative to different people. Okay, the aura of men is of 4 degrees. Okay. Firstly, the aura in prayer, okay, which is the most important for our present purposes. Okay, the aura in prayer and amongst mahram women, mahram being people, people who are not legally unmarriageable people, okay, permanently unmarriageable people under the Sharia. Okay, like the mother, sister, grandmother, aunts, okay, for example. Among others, we've covered this before also, who the mahram are. Right? And the opposite of mahram is ajnabi, okay, strange, literally foreigners, okay, or strangers, okay, people who are external to that relationship, okay, of ihram. Okay, so for men in prayer and amongst mahram women and in the presence of other men, that is the aura is between the navel and the knees. Okay, as we mentioned earlier, there's the principle, whichever wajib is not whichever affair, right, or if there's a prerequisite for the proper performance of a wajib, right, and without which that wajib cannot be properly rendered or performed, then that prerequisite also becomes wajib by virtue of the dependence of the wajib on that prerequisite. Okay, so that principle we used to explain, how when we take wudu, we are taught to take wudu up to the elbows, right, by the elbows, but just barely reaching the elbows does not suffice, because it does not fulfill the condition completely. Therefore, we should go past the elbow. Okay, so similarly with the aura, we should cover something of the navel and of the knees as well. Okay, so ideally we go past the navel and the knees, and we know for sure that we have fulfilled the requirement of covering the aura, or concealing the aura that is between the navel, between the navel to the knees. Yeah. Okay, so that is in prayer. Okay, when a man is by himself, the aura is the two private parts. Okay, that does, of course, there is a difference between what is legally proper and what is morally or ethically proper. So it's not something that is encouraged, right, for people to be sitting around at home, right, without, people should be still be dressed modestly. Okay, if it's, unless there are some extenuating circumstances, but generally, okay, but for the man himself, the aura is only the two private parts. Again, it's makruh to be looking at the private parts without a reason. Okay. Okay, so amongst Ajnabi women, when the man is amongst Ajnabi women, Ajnabi meaning, like I mentioned earlier, non-mahram women, people who are marriageable to him legally, right, the aura for him that he has to cover, and which they are forbidden to see, is the whole body. Okay, this is according to the Mu'tamad position, the relied upon position in the Shafi'i madhab. Relied upon positions are taken from the works of Imam Shafi'i and Imam Nawawi and Imam Rafi'i within the madhab. Okay, and of course there are dissenting opinions. There are dissenting not in the sense of not with an antagonistic sense, not in that sense, but different. There are people who follow the same procedures but arrive at different conclusions. Okay, so the opinions are valid but not the strongest opinions in the madhab. Okay, so there are other opinions, valid opinions, which say that it's possible to reveal more, or rather not to have to cover up the whole body, right, depending on certain conditions. Okay, the awrat of the man with his wife, right, okay, with the one that is made legally, the halal non-mahram for him. The wife is the halal non-mahram, the one who is legally is legal for the male. Okay, permissible, right, but not a mahram. There is no aura. Okay, with regards to women, okay, there are 5 degrees. Okay, so first of all, in prayer is the whole body except the face and the hands. Yeah. Okay, for this one there is a condition. Yeah. Okay, so if for example the woman is praying in front of Ajnabi men, yeah, and she's pretty or beautiful, it might cause fitna, or might induce illicit desire in the man, then it's wajib for her to cover everything, right, including the hands and the face. Okay, of course that we have to address that when it comes to the conditions of sajda. When we prostrate, some part of the face, right, some part of the head, and some part of the hands have to touch the floor. So then you have to adjust for that. Okay, in that scenario, okay, where the woman covers up her whole body. Okay, so that is the aura of woman in prayer. Right. Whole body meaning including the soles of the feet, including the tops of the feet and the soles of the feet. Okay, so if any of that is revealed, then aura is revealed even for a moment, and therefore the prayer is invalid. Okay, even if a strand of hair is left out of her prayer dress, okay, that invalidates the prayer, because the aura that is considered aura, and that aura is revealed even by a strand of hair. Okay, unless it is concealed, right, as soon as possible. Okay, when the woman is by herself and amongst chaste women meaning not fasik, not corrupt women, okay, and mahram men, right, the aura is between the navel and the knees. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, with regards to the man sitting, with the man by himself, similarly, it still behoves the woman to dress modestly, in loose, not tight-fitting clothes. Okay, so because there's a difference between what is legally permissible and what is ethically, advisable. Okay, so obviously we don't, even amongst haram men or siblings, the lady should not be sitting around covering only what's between the navel and the knees. Okay, and when we refer to chaste women, we refers to women who are not corrupt women who are not fasik. Fasik is someone who performs major sins, right, or performs minor sins repeatedly. Okay, it's a recalcitrant. Okay, so thirdly, another degree is when this woman is amongst non-Muslim and corrupt, or corrupt women. Okay, non-Muslim women or corrupt women, fasik women. Okay, here whatever is the aura is whatever is not revealed when performing chores. Okay, that is what is possible to reveal is what is revealed when performing chores. Okay, when we say performing chores, they mean al-Mihna, meaning manual work. So it's not, people will dress down a bit for that. Yeah. Okay, so they can expose what is the head, the neck, the forearms, right, and the feet up to the knees. Okay, so this is what is possible, what is permissible to expose to non-Muslim women and Muslim women who are fasik, okay, corrupt Muslim women. Okay, so this obviously has implications for when you want to go for a massage, and it's a non-Muslim masseuse, okay, female masseuse. So these things should be taken into account, okay, and avoided. Okay, it's not permissible to reveal what is not revealed when performing chores. Okay, what is permissible to reveal, like I said, is the face, the neck, the hands, the forearms, right? Hands up to the forearms and the feet up to the knees. Okay, amongst foreign men, amongst ajnabi men, marriageable men, okay, it is the whole body. This is the mu'tamad position. This is the relied upon position of the madhab, right? But nowadays, because a lot of women are going out into the markets and on the streets, okay, so there is a valid position within the madhab, right, which allows them to cover everything except the face and hands. Okay, allows them to reveal the face and hands, but on three conditions. Firstly, that there is no fitna, it does not bring about fitna. Right? Okay, fitna is confusion, literally is confusion, but meaning, perhaps gossip or enticement or anything negative, basically, that arises from any negative repercussions that might arise from revealing the face. Okay. Or causes some kind of social strife, okay, generally speaking. So number one, it does not elicit or does not incite fitna, does not incite shahwa, desire. Right? And thirdly, that there is no, there should not be any cosmetics, okay, any observable jewelry or cosmetics or beautification on the face and hands, which are allowed to be revealed. Okay, so on these three conditions, there is a position in the madhab, in the Shafi'i madhab, that allows women to go out and reveal the face and hands. Okay, no other body part except those two. Okay, so that's what they are allowed to reveal in public. And with the husband also, there is no aura. Okay, so in prayer for men, it's between the navel and the knees. Okay, but of course it doesn't mean like because we can pray with a very short sarung, for example, that one then does pray with a very short sarung. Okay, there's poor adab with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, and for women it is the whole body, including the hair, including the whole body except the face and the hands. Okay, with the condition that there are not ajnabi men looking at her and it might cause fitna or shahwa, induce shahwa. Okay, so what about women's attire in private and among non-marriageable or or mahram male relatives? As I mentioned, it should be they should still try to keep to loose, non-revealing clothes. Okay, in fact, even when alone. Okay, continuing that point, okay, that condition. Okay, we spoke about aura just now. Okay, what it means and what it is with regards male and female and the male men and women and according to in relative to different people or settings. Okay, now we want to understand what concealing means, what covering means. Okay, so the satir is mentioned in the text, right? Satirin tahirin mubahin. Okay, the satir is what is the covering and what conceals the aura. Okay, so there are three conditions, right, for something to constitute a covering that is accepted as properly concealing the aura. Okay, number one, it covers the body from the top and the sides, right, by clinging to it. Okay, so what is excluded by this? Right, the dress or the covering should cling to the body, should stick to the body. Okay, so what is excluded by this is if one is concealed by the night. Okay, for example, so it's dark night and nobody can see the aura, that still does not constitute a satir, okay, a covering. Okay, it's still not considered to be concealed. The aura is still revealed. Or if one is in a hole in the ground, or if one is in a tight tent, okay, a small tent. Okay, so these are not considered covering. Okay, it has to cover the body, usually clothes, right, from above and from the sides. Okay. Okay, from above and from the side, it is invalidated. The prayer is invalidated, or this condition has not been fulfilled, or it's not fulfilled sufficiently if one's aura can be seen from the top, right, from above looking down, or from the side, right, even by oneself. Okay, so this is a problem when, for example, we pray with pants that drop too low, for example, sometimes, and then the cracks show. Yeah, so that's one problem. Sometimes we wear a shirt that's a bit too loose, right, and the boxers or the pants are below the belly button, below the navel, right, such that when you bend, you can see, you're able to see inside the shirt towards below the navel. Okay, then in that case, obviously the prayer has been invalidated, whether or not when one knows it, right, the prayer is invalid because the aura has been revealed. Okay, so this is why the habaib, the salaf, when they wear sarungs, right, they tend to wear them above the belly button, high up, right, such that even in prayer, if they're wearing a loose singlet, the aura is still not revealed. Yeah, the prayer is not invalidated, it's safe. Yeah, so that's one of the wisdoms, right? And also it seems, and if you look at the older pictures of generally the Muslims from before, when they started, when pants became a thing, right, they used to wear their pants higher up above the waistline as well. I suspect it has something to do with this. Okay, from below the aura, from below, if one's aura is revealed from below, the prayer is not invalidated. Okay, it's only invalidated if the aura is revealed from the sides, or from the top, from above. From below, so for example, if someone wants to pray without underwear, for example, or with underwear, but the part above the knee is exposed, and to pray above a glass, on a glass floor, for example, and there were people walking below who could look up, and right, so that was still not, the aura is revealed, but it does not invalidate the prayer. Okay, so what is important is that the aura cannot be revealed from the top and from the sides. Okay, and that it should cling to the body, it should stick to the body. Okay, this covering, right, for it to be considered a covering, it should also conceal the color of the skin. Yeah, so that the color of the skin is not cannot be seen, right, from one who is observing with normal eyesight, right, and sitting within the range of a majlis takhatub. Okay, this majlis takhatub is a standard measurement in figure. Also, as we mentioned this earlier also, when it comes to the thickness of the beard, right, whether it becomes obligatory to wash inside the beard or not. Okay, so if it's a thick beard, right, meaning this is the variable that defines whether or not a beard is thick, right, that one was not able to see the skin, right, from the distance of a majlis takhatub. Majlis takhatub is distance where the customary distance between two people when they're having a conversation, Okay, so in figure it's a sort of, we call it, it's a standard measurement. Okay, so about 1.2 to 1.5 meters. So in that range, okay, one should not be able to see the color of the skin. Right, a person with normal eyesight should not be able to see the color of the skin inside or behind the covering of the skin. Okay, so what is excluded by this? Right, even black. Okay, material being black, someone wearing black material, right, is not sufficient, because sometimes even if it's black, the material is thin, you can still see the color of the skin under the material. Okay, it can be thin but revealing. It can be black but thin or revealing. Okay, my point being that, okay, also excluded by this definition is that the one who has sharper than normal eyesight. Okay, someone whose eyes are really extra sharp and can see the color of the skin under the material that the one is covering, using it to cover, right, it's also excluded by this. And the one who is sitting closer than that distance of a majlis takhatub, less than 1.2 meters, okay, these are all excluded. So if these people can see the color of the skin, right, then that is still okay. Okay, so generally it should conceal the color of the skin. We cover the body from above and the sides by clinging to it, being some substance, okay, covering it. You should conceal the color of the skin, right, from a person with normal eyesight within a distance of a conversational distance, right? Maybe you can translate it that way. Okay, and it must be pure of inexcusable impurities. Okay, why inexcusable impurities? Because they are impurities that are excusable. Okay, so what is excluded by this condition is, for example, excusable impurities like a little bit of blood. Okay, what is conventionally or customarily considered to be little, right? And maybe if there is any najis or impurity that when one glances at it, one is not able to see, right, at a glance. Yeah, one has to really what do you call it? Has to really come really very close, right, and observe the thing very closely. Okay, so what is not perceivable at a glance, or what is a little amount, okay, these are some of the examples of what are considered excusable impurities. Okay, so if these are on the covering, right, then it is still accepted. Okay, there are some other issues with aura, right? So for example, why we have to clarify why Habib Ahmad bin Zain says that the covering should be something that is permitted, right, mubah. Okay, in fact, it being something permitted is not strictly speaking a condition of validity, right? Although it will leave the prayer bereft of any reward, because when one is wearing, it's haram but sah but haram, it's valid but haram. So the prayer is considered valid. The covering here, the concealment is valid, right, but it is haram. Yes, so therefore the prayer is valid but haram. Yeah. Okay. So it's a condition not of the validity of the prayer, but of a condition of the validity of, or rather a condition of earning the reward, right? Earning the full reward of the prayer. And perhaps this is what Habib Ahmad bin Zain meant, okay, when he included this. Okay, and what about praying when people? What about praying in very tight clothes? Okay, some people, ideally we all wear loose, modest clothes, right, that cover the aura properly. Okay, but sometimes people pray in jeans or whatever it is. So with regards men, right, the prayer, men and women, for men and women both, the prayer is still valid, right, as long as it covers, as long as the clothes fulfill those three conditions, the prayer is still valid. Okay, except that for men, the ruling is khilaful awla, meaning it is other than what's best. Okay, so what is best would be wearing loose, non-revealing clothes, modest clothes. Okay, and for women, it is makruh, reprehensible, or disliked. Okay, and haram if the clothes are so tight as to be body hugging, then it is haram. So the ruling would be similar to praying in stolen clothes, for example. Okay, that they are then used to cover the aura. Okay, so if one cannot find anything, for example, if one cannot find this, for some reason one is in a spot and it's difficult to find anything to cover the aura with, right, or one has to choose between the front and the rear aura, then one should prioritize the front, okay, before the rear. And if one can find enough to cover both, then one should cover both. And if one cannot find anything at all, then one should pray naked. Okay, and that prayer does not have to be made up, does not have to be repeated. Okay, of course, when you consider it for a while, the circumstances must be, it must be very difficult for one to be put in a spot where one is not able to find anything to cover the aura, or even the front and rear. Okay, so there's not, alhamdulillah, the mercy of Islam such that you don't have to, the scholars have seen, considered this, it's not something that you're not required to pray again, to make up that prayer in that situation. Okay, so the final point that Habib Ahmad Menzin brings is the removal of impurity from the clothes, body, and place of prayer. Okay, ويجب رفع النجاسة من الثوب والبدن والمكان. ويجب ستر العورة بساتر طاهر مباح. ويجب رفع النجاسة من الثوب والبدن والمكان. Okay, that the other condition of prayer. Another condition of prayer is that there should be no impurities, right, from clothes, on one's clothes, on one's body, or on the place of prayer, in the place of prayer. Okay, this would also invalidate prayer. Okay, what is impurity? Impurity or najasa, okay, we're talking about every inexcusable impurity that nullifies the validity of prayer. Okay, so these include a few different things, right, including liquid intoxicants, wine, alcohol, etc. Anything that comes from pigs or dogs, or derivatives of each or both. Yeah. Other animals not slaughtered according to Sharia, animal bones, fur, milk, right? Any animal parts from animals that are non-edible under the Sharia. They have not been slaughtered under the Sharia. Okay, it also includes blood. It also includes vomit. Okay, vomit is whatever has reached, whatever comes back to the mouth after having reached the stomach. Okay, or some other scholars say whatever comes back to the mouth after having reached the makhraj of ha, the part on our neck, throats, where we make the sound of ha. Okay, so there is ha above, and then below it there is ha, is deeper. Okay, so whatever has gone past that and comes back to the mouth, right? Some scholars consider that to be vomit. Okay, so this is important to take note of, especially when we're talking about children, for example, babies. Yeah, when they're feeding, sometimes the milk has already gone down, sometimes into the stomach, and there's regurgitation. Okay, so this is considered najasa, inexcusable impurity. Yeah, vomit, pus, anything that originates from the front or rear private parts. Okay, any liquid that flows out from the mouth, having from the mouth after coming from the stomach out to the mouth. Sometimes what do you call this? Sometimes saliva, that drool that comes out while sleeping, for example. So if it comes out from the stomach, that is also considered najis, impurity that's inexcusable. Okay, so excluded from this definition, right, of impurity or najasa, right, are excusable impurities, i.e. impurities that don't nullify prayer. Yeah, so they're still impurities, right? Linguistically, they're still considered, or conventionally, they're still considered impurities, najasa, but or rather impurities, but they don't nullify the prayer. So, for example, sputum, right, spit, right, or snot, right, from the nose. Okay, so these are impurities that do not nullify the prayer, or if they are considered najasa that nullify the prayer, they are the kind that are forgiven, that are excused, right, ma'fu. For example, as I mentioned earlier, a little blood, okay, a little bit of blood, or that which cannot be perceived at a glance. Yeah, so the Sharia allows concessions for people who pray with these on their clothes, body, or place of prayer. Okay. Okay, so that's impurity. Okay, that's the meaning of impurity. Okay, clothes refer to whatever is worn or used on the body, yeah, or anything that is carried, okay, by one or connected to the body, even if it does not move with the body. Yeah, so, for example, if one is carrying a baby, right, one is carrying one's baby and that baby has a dirty diaper, right? Or one is praying and the baby comes and hangs onto one's pants, for example. Yeah, then that would be considered carrying. Okay. Or if the baby is in a diaper that the baby has not been washed properly, has been washed with wet wipes, for example, right, not fulfilling the requirements for the removal of filth, removal of impurities, right, the wet wipe does not fulfill those conditions, right, so that's something that parents especially should check, right, should be aware of and check. So if you want to carry your baby, but the baby hasn't been washed properly, right, then that is carrying, that's considered to be carrying najasa, carrying impurity. Okay. Or if there's a string connecting between the parent and some impurity, the child, or if someone is praying and has tied his beast, for example, his horse or his goat or whatever it is, to himself, right, and there is apparent impurity that is manifest on the animal, right, then that is considered carrying the impurity. Okay, so whatever is worn or used on the body, clothes, whatever normally one wears, right, or is carried or connected to the body. Okay, even if it doesn't move with the body, meaning, for example, even if one ties that rope to or one ties one string to one's child, for example, right, and that string does not move with your body, okay, it is still considered carrying impurity, and therefore that means this condition has not been fulfilled and the prayer is invalid. Okay, so that nullifies this condition, except if we were to take one to take that string and put it under one's foot, okay, then that is not considered carrying. Yeah. Okay, so if the string is stepped on, right, or whatever is connected to the impurity, right, or filth is stepped upon, put under one's foot, that is not considered carrying. But otherwise, okay, that nullifies this condition and therefore the prayer. Okay, the body refers to all parts of the body, including the nose, inside of the nose, eye, and mouth. Right, and the place of prayer is that which one comes into contact with during the prayer. Okay, so that's the definition of. So the purity, it has to be pure, right? The clothes have to be pure. One's body has to be pure, right? And the place also has to be pure. Okay, cat hair, for example, right, is included in the impurities earlier, the inexcusable impurities, under the inexcusable impurities, except that a little is excusable. Okay, a little bit of cat hair, a little bit of cat fur is excusable. A lot is not. This is the mu'tamad position, right? But because cats are so popular, there are other positions also, right? So there is a weaker position within the madhab that says that even a lot of cat hair is permissible. Okay, but generally because it's separated from an animal that we don't eat, it's not slaughtered, okay, according to the Sharia, right, whatever is separated from the animal or part of the animal or whatever is separated from the animal is considered, it has the same ruling as the animal itself. Okay, any part separated from a living being is considered like the unslaughtered dead of that animal. Okay, except for the hair or body parts of animals that are that Muslims can eat after slaughtering. Okay, so finally, Habib Ahmad bin Zain also includes that it is obligatory to perform, for those able to perform the obligatory prayer standing. Okay, it's wajib to stand for those who are able to stand for the obligatory prayer. Okay, why does he include this? Right, because in fact, it is not a condition. It's not normally put or designated by the scholars as one of the conditions of the prayer. Okay, but Sheikh Basaudan has interpreted this, I think, quite well, right? Because the standing is in fact a condition before and during the opening takbir, the takbiratul ihram of the prayer. Standing is a condition before and during the takbiratul ihram. You see that it is a condition of validity of prayer, right, of the takbir. Right? And after the takbiratul ihram, meaning within the prayer proper, it is an integral. It is a condition. Okay, it is rather an integral, a rukun. Okay, so before it is a sharat, and after the takbiratul ihram, during and after it is after it is a rukun. Okay, so perhaps this is what Habib Ahmad bin Zain meant when he included the requirement to stand. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, we touched on incidentally earlier about knowing the Qibla and facing the Qibla, right? Similar to this facing the Qibla, there are degrees of standing, right? So if one either stands, if one is able to, otherwise one stands bowed, inclined slightly, right? Or one sits right? Or one lies on one side, or if not on one's back. Okay, but we will cover this with more properly within the arkan, within the integrals of the prayer, inshallah. Okay, and the standing is wajib, okay, for any fard prayer, right? So whether it's a prayer that is being prayed in its time, or it's a prayer that is being made up, or a prayer that is a fardu kifaya, like the janazah prayer, right, it is fardu to stand. Okay, but for sunnah prayers, it is permissible for the one praying to pray seated. Okay, it's permissible to pray seated. One can pray seated, but the reward is halved. Okay, so for sunnah prayers, it's okay. It's permissible. Right? It's valid to pray seated, but not for fard prayers. Okay, so a recap of all the other conditions that we've done. Okay, so these are some of the other conditions of validity that other scholars put in the works as well. Okay, being free of minor and major ritual impurity perhaps falls under, can be slid under the earlier point, okay, about being pure, right, of impurity in body, clothes, and place. Right. Also, one must know, one must have knowledge of the prayer being obligatory. So if one was to assume that the prayer that they're praying is a sunnah, right, that is a sunnah to pray, then that invalidates the prayer. And one must not consider that one of its integrals is sunnah. Okay, so for example, the standing, the Fatiha, the bowing, and there are a few scenarios for this, right? But the point is, as long as one does not consider that something that is wajib, right, an obligatory integral, one does not degrade it in one's conception, in one's mind, to something that is sunnah. Okay, so it's okay to upgrade the sunnah to wajib, or to consider everything as wajib, or to consider that there are some elements of the prayer that are wajib and some that are sunnah, But the minute we consider that something that is wajib, reading the Fatiha, for example, reciting the Fatiha is a wajib, is a fard, is a rukun, is a integral, an integral of the prayer. The minute one considers one integral, right, the Fatiha or the standing or the bowing, as a sunnah, then that causes the prayer to become invalid. Okay, because one has not fulfilled this condition. Okay, so the rest of this will cover or rather the standing will cover within the integrals of the prayer proper, inshallah. Right, just to recap, right, so the requirements that must be fulfilled, okay, are the conditions, right, which are requirements that must be fulfilled before and throughout the worship, okay, the action for it to be valid, right, entry of the time, right, facing or knowing the Qibla, right, covering one's aura, right, the purity of clothes, body, place from inexcusable impurities, and being free of minor and major ritual impurity, knowledge of the prayer being obligatory, being wajib, right, not assuming it to be sunnah, right, and also not to consider any one of its integrals, of its rukun, its arkan, to be something that is sunnah. Okay, so misconceiving it. So this is why it's important, very important, to study the prayer proper, so that we know all the different integrals of prayer, and we know which are fard, which are sunnah. Yeah. Okay, so that is it. And inshallah next week we'll come to the prayer proper. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammad wa alihi wasallam. Validity al-futuh al-munuh al-rasuh salah al-jasdi wal-rahatu wa tinasuh ala ahli sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
يا ربنا اعترفنا بأننا اقترفنا وأننا أسرفنا على لظى أشرفنا فضلا وجودا منا لا باكتساب منا بالمصطفى الرسول نحظى بكل سول بالمصطفى الرسول نحظى بكل سول بالمصطفى الرسول نحظى بكل سول